Now, you don't have 6 minutes. You have closer to 3 minutes because there are 4 passages on the LSAT, of course, 35 minutes per section. You have about 8:45 per passage. Now, if you take 6 minutes to read the passage, you'll have only 2:45 to answer 7 questions. So that's less than 30 seconds per question, or maybe approximately 30 seconds per question, but that's crazy. You need really closer to a minute per question ideally. So if you get yourself down to maybe 400 words per minute, so you're taking about 3 minutes to read the passage, that gives you 5:45 for the questions, 5 minutes, 45 seconds for the questions, which is closer to about a minute per question. Now, somebody asked, what if you focus on only 3 passages? That's a perfectly valid strategy. Yes, you could focus on only 3 passages, and of course, that changes everything. Now you have about 12 minutes per passage, so you could take 5 minutes for the initial read of the passage, then that will give you 1 minute per question. So now, 5 minutes for the passage, that's probably, you're aiming for a rate of 350 words per minute to read the passage itself. Then you're giving yourself about a minute or so per question, which is valid. That's a perfectly fine strategy. But the issue is this sets a ceiling on how high your score could possibly get. Because if you're sacrificing 1 passage at the outset, you're automatically losing about 5 questions, assuming you're guessing randomly. So you're losing 5 questions on the passage you did not even attempt. Then you're probably not scoring perfectly on the other 3 passages. So you're losing a handful of questions there too. So for anyone aiming for 160 plus or 165 plus, I'd say you do want to attempt all 4 passages, just as you do want to attempt all 4 games, and you really want to attempt every single question on the LSAT as a whole. But if you're looking to just get in the 150s, maybe 155, 160, you could find doing only 3 passages to be a perfectly valid strategy for you. Of course, everyone's going to be different on this. Now, for using these apps, you could copy paste the actual LSAT passages if you have the PDFs. Alternatively, you could go on Project Gutenberg and use public domain books and articles and copy paste them into these different apps. I've put these links to all these various apps and things in the chat there if you want to check them out and play around with them a bit. I'm including the others as well for you here. Now, you could read like some things like Alice in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, Pride and Prejudice. They're all public domain, easily available. And then if you have the PDFs and you're able to copy paste, then that's another valid strategy to use as well. Now, the guy behind the speed reading course I mentioned, readspeeder.com, he also has a book that I highly recommend called Speed Reading with the Right Brain, Learn to Read Ideas Instead of Just Words. This is probably the best resource I've come across on speed reading. Now, I'm not saying speed reading in the conventional sense, which is like skimming like the question I was addressing earlier. This is getting more into the nitty-gritty of actually comprehending what you read, because there's 2 things you want to deal with on the LSAT with these difficult passages. The first is simply straight up comprehension, even under untimed conditions, or gradually increasing your speed from maybe 200 words a minute up to ideally 400, 450 words per minute. I think realistically, you're not going to get 500 or above with anything as complex as what you're dealing with on the LSAT. So if 400 is your ceiling or 350 is your ceiling, don't beat yourself up over it. That's really a perfectly reasonable goal.